The small village of Greenwillow lay nestled between rolling hills and wide golden fields. Its people were simple, hard-working folk who valued strength, health, and the ability to labor under the sun. In such a place, weakness was often mistaken for worthlessness. And so it was that young Elena, who had lost the use of her legs after a fever in childhood, grew up in the shadow of other people's pity. Her parents did what they could, but whispers followed her everywhere. She'll never marry. She's a burden. No man wants a wife who cannot work beside him. Elena heard those words all her life. And though she kept her chin up and her smile gentle, the truth was that she carried loneliness like a second skin. Chapter 1. The Day of Abandonment. Elena had once dared to believe she was loved. A man named Victor, tall and broad-shouldered, had courted her with promises of devotion. He had sat beside her in the evenings, speaking of futures they would build together. She thought, for a brief moment, that perhaps God had sent her a miracle. But on the morning of their planned engagement, Victor came to her door with his eyes downcast. "Elena," he muttered, shifting uneasily. "I cannot go through with this." Her heart stilled. Why? He wouldn't look at her. You know why. A wife must walk beside her husband. You cannot. The words landed like stones. She wanted to scream, to tell him love was more than walking, more than chores and fields. But her throat closed. When Victor left, he didn't just walk away with his footsteps, he took with him the fragile hope she had been guarding for years. Chapter 2. The Lonely Farmer. Across the village lived Thomas Hale, a quiet farmer in his early 40s. He had lived alone for as long as anyone could remember. His days were spent in the fields, his nights in the small wooden house his father had built. People said Thomas was odd, too silent, too different. He never joined the men in the tavern or chased after the women. Some said he didn't know how to love. But the truth was different. Thomas had once loved, long ago, but tragedy had taken his fiancée in a wagon accident. Since then, he had buried his heart beneath work and solitude. Yet he noticed Elena. He noticed how her eyes carried strength even when her body would not. He noticed how she read books to the village children, her voice like music in the evening air. He noticed how she never asked for pity. He never said a word. Not yet. Chapter 3. The Meeting of Two Souls. One summer evening, Thomas found Elena sitting beneath the great oak tree near the riverbank, her wheelchair parked in the grass. He hesitated, then approached. "You like the river?" he asked. She looked up, startled, then smiled politely. "It makes me feel free. The water moves as I cannot." Her honesty disarmed him. He sat nearby, though not too close. "You remind me of the river," he said after a moment. She laughed softly. "How can I? I cannot move." He shook his head. "The river's strength isn't in its legs. It's in how it flows, how it keeps going, no matter what stones are in its path. That's what I see in you." For the first time in years, Elena felt her heart stir with something other than pain. Chapter 4. Whispers and Judgments. When villagers saw Thomas and Elena spending time together, him wheeling her chair through the marketplace, her smiling beside him, the whispers began again. What does he want with her? He must be desperate. Why would a strong farmer choose a crippled woman? The words stung, but Thomas didn't waver. When a man sneered at Elena in the square, Thomas fixed him with a steady gaze. "Love isn't measured in steps," Thomas said firmly. "It's measured in hearts." His words silenced the square. For Elena, they echoed louder than any whisper. Chapter 5. Building a Life. Their bond deepened. Thomas invited Elena to his farm, not as a guest but as a partner. She could not walk the fields, but she managed the household with grace. She kept accounts, tended to the garden in raised beds he built just for her, and read to him in the evenings by lamplight. They discovered a rhythm, a way of being whole together. She filled the house with warmth it had never known, and he filled her days with the steady reassurance that she was cherished. Still, trials came. Storms ruined crops. Villagers doubted their union. But hand in hand, one hand rough with work, the other delicate yet unyielding, they endured. Chapter 6. The Proof of Love. One autumn, when Elena fell gravely ill, Thomas stayed by her side day and night. He spoon-fed her broth, whispered encouragement, and prayed over her bed. When she awoke weak but alive, she wept. "Why do you stay? I am nothing but trouble for you." Thomas took her hand, rough and calloused against her soft fingers. "You are my heart, Elena. You are not trouble, you are the reason my fields feel alive again." Love does not see limits, only possibilities. She knew then that no abandonment could ever wound her again. Chapter 7. A Village Transformed. Years passed, and the village began to see what Thomas had always seen. They saw how Elena taught the children to read, how she spoke wisdom in town gatherings, how her courage uplifted others who felt small or forgotten. When Thomas and Elena sat together in the church pew on Sundays, people no longer whispered out of scorn, but out of awe. And when Victor, the man who had left her, returned one day to the village and saw her radiant joy beside Thomas, regret hollowed his eyes. But Elena no longer needed his approval. She had found a love that walked with her soul, not her legs. Epilogue. The Lesson of Love. In the golden years of their marriage, Thomas often wheeled Elena to the same oak tree by the river where they first spoke. "Do you still feel free when you see the water?" he would ask. She would smile, her eyes glistening. "I feel freer than ever, Thomas. Because with you, I do not need to walk to know I am whole." Answer. In a village that once measured worth in strength and steps, two unlikely souls proved that real love does not count steps, it counts hearts.